Hello, welcome pen friends. Welcome to another ink profile. Today we're doing Pelikan Edelstein Aventurine, I think. I'm not real good at pronouncing. But this is a really pretty green. It's got some complexity. I've had a great time writing letters with it, and wait till you see the visual journal. So some of you may remember that I'm kind of a recent green ink fan. I wasn't when I started. And by the way, we're working our way through Ink Flight 28, which was from last month, from May 2019. I'm delayed because of my trip. So actually we just have one more after this because I've already done the last two. So here we are on this beautiful green. So to get started, let's just put it in the water test. See what happens. I'm actually getting this video done right now because we're expecting a storm, and I expect to lose at least my lighting, and possibly, you know, it could get really loud, you know, with the storm. Okay, so we'll let that work, and I'll show you the report from the last ink that I profiled, Pelikan Edelstein Tanzanite. That turned out to be very resistant to the ink, and it also cleaned out very, very well. So there you have it. That was really interesting. So we'll let that work because it needs time in the water. And we'll get in the Rhodia Gold book, my nice starting point here. And here we are. I thought I'd just read to you what Ink Journal said about it. They said, part of the original set of Edelstein premium quality inks that debuted in 2010. Aventurine is a wet writing, rich green with shading, and I definitely agree. Definitely wet writing, definitely I saw shading several places, and I was really, really happy with this ink. So here we have it. It did impressive things on the Tomoe River 52 gram paper, and I taped it in, and we have it in the broad nib here, and then in the Lamy fine nib. Just a beautiful, beautiful ink. And I found it at Pen Chalet, 4 mils for $3.50. And then at this moment in time anyway, it may not stay this way, but 50 mil, $25.20. I write these things down in case later I'm interested in where did I think was the best place to purchase it. It'll be in my ink journal, you know, for reference, I guess. So, okay, so gosh, it was pretty, and it did have shading. It's a little bit hard to pick that up here, but we'll see it more on some of the samples. And then my first impressions were I just really liked it, and it looked complex right out of the bat. As soon as I saw it on that initial panel, I knew that we were going to have some, pretty colors coming out, and sure enough we did. So here's the chromatography. I'm kind of wondering, I sat there and held it, and I don't think I held it too long, but who knows, because later on when I did the visual journal, you'll see I was kind of surprised at that. But I'll give you a glimpse of that, and then we'll look later at that visual journal. Okay, 4 more notebooks to look at. The first one is the Little Moraman, the spiral notebook that was purchased at Daisico. I think up in North Texas, where, you know, I'm a long way from there, but it was a pen friend that got it for me. Thank you, Banu. Here it is. It really looked pretty on this paper. I don't know what ink doesn't. It did try to bleed through where it was really heavily laid on, which, you know, that just doesn't surprise me. That's about what we found with this paper. It resists really well in most cases. Okay, so there it is in the broad nib. And then in the Lamy fine nib. Just a joy to write on this nice, smooth paper. Okay. And next is CVS Caliber Notebook, graced with a rickshaw sticker. I just love their stickers. This is the little 4x6 from CVS Pharmacy. It's their Caliber paper. And here we go. Now on this, it really, really was amazing. Can you see that red sheen? I think you might be able to. I'm tilting this funny because that way you get the best advantage of light. But it looked really nice on here, and it held up really well in the fine nib on this paper, which is incredible. So you know you're dealing with enough saturation and really good flow when you can write on the CVS Caliber paper and it doesn't feel like, oh, you're having to push the nib. No. it felt really smooth, so, and especially in the broad nib, but that would be expected, so I really liked that. Okay, and then I hopped into the little Leuchtturm pocket size 1917 dot grid for a quick test. I think I thought it had bled through, but it really didn't. Just tiny bit right there, so I felt bad about making that note. I did it kind of hastily. But here's the green. Here's how it looked. It really shaded well on this paper. I don't know if you could see that. The tops of those letters, and definitely saw a lot of shading, and I liked it very much. And I'm not sure. I definitely think a medium nib would be perfect. I think maybe with the broad nib, if I did a bunch of really careless writing, it might bleed through. But I was writing really quick most of the places. And then with the box, I slowed down, and I probably let the pen sit there. So I probably would choose a medium or fine on the Leuchtturm, but that's helpful. It tells me what I might want to write with. And then here's the Live Notes by Pen Gallery, 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. This was also given by a pen friend Mike, some time ago. And this has been really nice to test it and compare it with the other Tomoe River paper, but here it is. And I think you can probably tell, well, I'm not ready to get that other paper out yet, but I will in a minute. It doesn't leave quite as an impressive shading on this paper, but it certainly goes on, and it doesn't really bleed through. It just shows through a little. And it looked nice. It did plenty of little shading, and just really nice in both nibs, broad and the fine. But what I like to do now, since we're transitioning to Tomoe River 52 gram, whoops, knocking over the sample, is show you that and then compare them. So here it is, whoops, that's distracting, on the 52 gram Tomoe River paper, and it just, I don't know, it gives edging when you paint it on, and it gives quite a bit of shading. You know, like I don't know, it was a noticeably more to me, but that's just my impression. And keep in mind, I love this paper, so I'm a little biased. But here, when we do compare them, it's hard not to notice there is a difference. You know, I feel like it, gosh, it just really performs differently on the 52 gram. And yet, yeah, it goes through a little more. See, you could see quite a bit more of that color coming through than you could on this one. Let's see, we'll get them right side by side. So to the right is the lesser bleed through on the 68 GSM paper. So that gives us that. That's pretty normal. That's what we usually discover, I think. Oh, I'm getting quite a pile up there. Okay, so Clairefontain, I'm bringing over everything. 90 gram French ruled is next. And of course, this is awesome paper, and it did really well on here. In fact, it's so nice to see it on that that paper. It shades incredibly, and it's smooth going on, super smooth. And then it also gives a really nice amount of shading when you do paint, if you want to. Okay, it did try to bleed through. It did a little bit of bleeding through there, in a heavily painted on scenario though, so that's really good. I could have chosen a different paintbrush and probably avoided that. Okay. Rhodia dot pad, 80 gram white paper. Very nice, and yet you don't get that spectacular shading with the painted on portion, but that's pretty normal. You'd still get shading in your writing though. I liked that. You know, it may not be as drastic as some of my old favorites, but it still is there, and it looks nice when you write a letter. I wrote a couple letters with this, or at least I wrote a page and a half of a couple letters, and I enjoyed working with it very much. So, broad nib and fine nib. Okay, same thing there as the Clairefontain. It bled through just a little bit on the heavily painted aspect. Okay, and then this is our last paper sample, Georgia Pacific 20-pound copy paper. Really flattens on that, if you can see that. You know, but I mean, this is super cheap paper, and it does feather in the broad nib, and it doesn't do quite as much of that in the fine nib. Let's turn it over. Okay, we got significant bleed through, I would say. Yeah, definitely more than any of the other Pelikan inks we've done so far. In here too, but that doesn't bother me as much as the letters coming through. Let's see if you could see that. Yeah, there's quite a bit of bleed through. But again, that's, you know, that's impossible with that paper. Okay, a quick stop off to check on this. So it looks like now we've got kind of this lime green coming out. So I don't know, maybe it'll still be readable. We'll find out probably in the next video on that, because I'll deal with that later. Okay, so I've got a couple panels. This is an interesting one. I don't know why it had a hole in the middle, but it's perfect for our purposes because I can lay today's on it and it may or may not stay, but at least there. Okay, so our ink of the day is the Pelikan Edelstein Aventurine. Whatever. Okay. I really loved the fact that it kind of reminded me of Three Oysters Jong Jade, because that Three Oysters appears a little lighter, but it has that same kind of complexity, and I love that. I just love it. It comes through a little bit more on our initial panel, how much that looks like that's the same colors are coming out and the complexity. So, you know, they all come out a little different, just like chromatography does. But this will give you a chance to see it besides some common greens, like KWZ green number 5. And then this is a green I have that is Blackstone Daintree green. I have a bottle of that, and it's beautiful. So it's, you know, this is a more foresty green, darker shades red kind of, and it's different. But and then this is one a lot of us know, Diamine Sherwood green, and that's, you know, it's kind of out of the range, and yet there it is. There's certainly in a nib, it's going to look a lot darker green, I believe, or from what I remember. And then Monteverde Olivine is way out there in a different category, but it's there for you to compare. So I've got another panel, so I better move on here. I'm not sure. Yeah, I get a little scrambled in the brain when I do these separately like this, but okay, so these are just some more common, well, common and uncommon greens. I think it's okay to cover up Monteverde Yosemite green because that's quite a bit more foresty and dark, but there's your comparison, and then I'll cover it up. Okay, I wanted you to see how Lamy green compared. Okay, we may be getting a little distortion there because I see the Lamy green as greener, but through the camera it's starting to look more blue-green, so that always upsets me, but I have to live with it for now. Diatramenous petrol, that's a blue-green for sure. That's way off the other scale. Huh, I wonder why that Lamy green just isn't, it's not behaving. Anyway, there's that opal green. KWZ green number 5. Okay, we've got some repetitions. So there must have been some reason why I wanted you to see this one. This is the final one. Sorry to scramble our brains so much, but we've already seen Daintree green and Lamy green. There's Montegrappa green, Diamine Magical Forest. That's a shimmer ink, so that's not really fair. I thought we'd already seen Sherwood green, but there's Sherwood green. Maybe I think we did. Oh dear. Monteverde California teal. This isn't really fitting our purposes, but I guess I thought there was something. Montegrappa green. Huh. I think we'll just quit that one. That panel didn't really show us. But I love this. It's very complex, which leads me to the next thing. I really enjoyed how the visual journal went. Oh my goodness, this was fun. Look at that. That's just incredible. That, to me, shows more chromatography than the actual one. Let's grab that. It's buried, but I'll one-handedly grab it. Okay, we've got to look back on that, because there it is. I'll just kind of lay it there. But notice how we start getting that. Of course, we get the teal, kind of the turquoisey color coming out. And we get yellow, but we get more than what this chromatography did show, because we get the actual green staying and kind of fading a little and all that complexity. I really like that. I would say that this ink is very suitable for that Nick Stewart technique, which is so much fun to, you know, lay the water down and then use your paintbrush to add in. And then you'll have to watch his videos to see more, but then you can come in at it before it dries with a pen and just look at that tree. It's got yellow highlight at the top, and and that turquoise. You could never do that on purpose. It's just what happens when you just kind of allow the ink to do what it's going to do. And I really liked the foreground too. And then over here, well, you know, maybe the water was a different amount or something, because that was pretty, but I wasn't all that overly overwhelmed with this one. But I really liked this, how it looks like almost like a explosion in the sky or something. You know, you probably couldn't make that happen on purpose, but there it is. So as you can tell, I still really enjoy this technique, and that's why I've kept it in the videos. Okay, so we've got one more in this series, Star Ruby. So I'll be cleaning pens and reorganizing my mess here, and that's the next one. And I haven't got shipping confirmation yet, but I know that the ink journal has already, the payment's been done, and it's going to be on its way very soon. But I'm thinking we still may have a little gap after Star Ruby that I could fit in another profile, which would be really awesome. In fact, I'm sure of it, because I know once I get shipping confirmation, New Jersey and Texas are a long way apart, so it'll take at least a couple of days. So I already have 2 pen allowance videos that I'm slowly compiling and working on, and I'm waiting on mail too for one of them. So I will see you back here very soon with Star Ruby and with a couple of small pen allowance videos. That'll be fun. Have a great day. Bye for now.